Hello, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Making Mobile Messaging Manageable and Secure with VaporStream and IBM. Today, we're joined by Galina Daskovsky, Avi Elkhani, and Kaushik Srinivas. Galina is the CEO of VaporStream, and Avi is the CTO of VaporStream. Kaushik is a product manager for IBM Mobile First Protect, formerly Mass 360, and my name is Kayla Heineman, and I'll be your moderator today. Real quick, just a few housekeeping items before we begin. If you've joined a webinar with us in the past, then you might notice we have a new look. We are using the On24 webinar platform to enhance your webinar experience. The webinar console is completely customizable, so you can enlarge the slides and minimize the speaker bios and Q&A box. So we hope you take advantage and play around with your console. This webinar is expected to last about 60 minutes and is in listen-only mode. We will have a Q&A session at the end of the presentation, so if you have a question you'd like answered, please be sure to post it through the Q&A box located on the right-hand side of your screen, but you can feel free to minimize this box if you'd like. We are recording today's session, and we'll make the link to the recording and slides available by email. Okay, so at this point, I'd like to go ahead and hand it off to Kaushik, who will kick it off with today's agenda. Kaushik?
All right. Thank you, Kayla. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining today's webinar. So over today's call, we'll tell you a little bit more about mobile app security and data security, and also some of the drivers for having a secure messaging solution on mobile devices across your organization, and then talk about the details of both of these and the integration that we have with the two products, Mobile First Protect and VaporStream in this case, towards the end, and end off with the Q&A. So just the agenda a little more in detail here. To start off, I will talk about mobile app and data security, talk about the drivers for separation of work data on mobile devices, which, as you know, is extremely important these days as you deal with more and more sensitive information on these mobile devices everywhere. That leads us to the conversation around containers and why app containerization is important for work information storage on mobile devices. The way this can be done is through SDKs, software development kits, or through app wrapping. So I'll talk about that, and also the need for secure messaging, after which Galina and Avi will walk us through VaporStream and the security enhancements that are in place now with this integration. So that being said, just to set the stage here on who we have amongst us, let's start off with a poll question on secure messaging needs today. So the question is, our company has the following policy on using text messaging for business. What is your policy? Is it the first option, which is it's not allowed for business, or the second option, which is allowed but not for messages that need to be retained, or the third option, which is not formally allowed but still used? So this is as it relates to text messaging in business. So please let us know your answers. We'll keep the poll open for a few seconds here, maybe about 30 seconds or so, as you answer them, and then we'll move on with the presentation. As you know, most users today are using texting or email or some form of communication to collaborate with their peers and coworkers. Many times it could be text messaging when they want something which is instantaneous. So text messaging has been high on a lot of our customers' priorities these days. All right, take a look at the results here. And that's interesting. So 17.6% say that it's not formally allowed but still used, and the remaining is split half and half between allowed but not for messages that need to be retained and not allowed. So that means more than 40% of us here actually do not allow text messaging for one reason or another. So obviously there are benefits to allowing this. So hopefully this webinar will be super useful for all of you, but especially for those who do not allow it today, because you now have a solution which can allow you to have your users text each other, but at the same time have your audit trails or other requirements which you need to have in place. So now just to set a context here, mobile app and data security is extremely important, and secure messaging is a part of it as well. So what are the main drivers or the main mobility initiatives that our customers have today in the enterprise? So we did a study with amongst our customer base, and this is what the results look like. Most of our customers, almost all of them, are embracing bring your own device or BYOD, and need to have a way to securely manage their application data, even just the mobile devices, using a single platform, which is where some of these enterprise mobility management solutions, such as Mobile First Protect, can help you with. Also, we're moving away from a single OS world, which was BlackBerry a few years ago, to a more multi-OS world where you have, say, an iPhone or an Android or Windows Phone or some of the other platforms which users might want. All about the user. It's all about choice. We as IT or as CIOs or CISOs, it's our responsibility to secure the data across all these mobile devices while allowing users to use their devices of choice. Some of the other initiatives which most companies have today are once they've secured the mobile device itself, they want to deploy public enterprise apps to users, also provide access to work content on mobile devices, but at the same time ensure that corporate data is secured on these devices. So that definitely means that security is extremely important for most of us as we deal with sensitive information on mobile devices. And that is where there's this approach in the industry known as the dual persona, where you can now have a completely separate work persona on a mobile device, which allows users to access all the information that they need, including emails, calendars, contacts, documents, even a browser for intranet browsing, all inside this one encrypted app experience. And this can be completely controlled by you in terms of the policies that you place on it. But at the same time, when a user wants to use the same mobile device for personal stuff, could be things like Facebook or FaceTime, for example, they can do so without so many constraints or restrictions. So this is also known as the workplace container, which Match360 has, and it's a full user experience for a work persona on any mobile device or platform. So the enterprises, the needs for enterprises themselves have definitely evolved over time. Started off with the first phase, which was email, calendar, contacts, and browser. So this was when MDM had just begun a few years ago, and everybody wanted to definitely secure the device, but move beyond that to deliver some of these other features securely, such as email or calendar or contact. Now, once that first use case was solved, very quickly, enterprises are now moving to the next stage, which is how can I secure other work apps with the same security policies and provide easy access to backend resources so that employees can access information irrespective of where they are, irrespective of the device that they have with them. Could be an iPad, could be an Android device, could be a Windows Phone, for example. And that is where application security comes in. So we provide what's known as a software development kit or an SDK, or we also have app wrapping technologies, which can be used to achieve this level of security for both in-house applications, which you might have built yourself, or through a third party for deployment across your users. Or it could also be for public apps, which are typically available on the public app stores. So in both of these situations, Mobile First Protect can definitely help you manage and secure these applications during the entire life cycle of these applications themselves. So as a best practice, it's definitely important to incorporate security into these applications right from the beginning, from the time this app is being built, or definitely before being deployed to users. Some of the typical features that customers look for in a solution which offers application security or containerization is things such as authentication to your backend resources, as well as single sign-on, so that users can have a single password across all their work applications, but also have single sign-on to backend resources very simply on their mobile device. From the IT or CISO standpoint, companies definitely want to have some of these other restrictions, such as data loss prevention, also known as data leakage prevention, or DLP, say for restricting cut, copy, paste on the data in an app. So you might want to restrict users from copying information from within a specific app and pasting it outside to a personal app. There are also certain open-end controls which may be required sometimes, so that users cannot open a document into, say, a third-party cloud sharing solution from a work app. So those are some DLP restrictions which enterprises definitely need and need to think of if you especially have regulations or specific compliance rules that you need to have. Per app VPN is another feature which is typically required, where users will need to tunnel back to backend resources behind the firewall when they're probably walking down the street or sitting at a Starbucks. So per app VPN ensures that this is possible at an application level without a full device level VPN. Other features are things like blocking usage on non-compliance. This could be based on user or device security posture. So if for some reason malicious app is detected on a device, or a device is jailbroken, for example, there should be a way to block this user from accessing the app immediately. And again, that can be done with an application security solution as well. And lastly, data encryption, which many operating systems are definitely getting better at or are good at. But then if you need additional security on top of that, above and beyond what the operating system allows you today, then again, you can use an application security framework such as Mobile First Protect to allow you to do that. So those are the different features that may be required, again, based on the use case for the apps or the data that you have today. But the way this is delivered to the apps themselves can be in two forms. The first one can be app wrapping, which is post-development code injection, and it doesn't involve any coding by you. All that the administrator has to do is get a hold of this IPA or APK file, depending on the platform, and upload it to MAS360 in this case, and we can automatically wrap it for you and then distribute it to your users through our enterprise app catalog. Very simple approach, definitely adds some of these other restrictions or controls that you might need as an admin to manage this data on these applications. The second approach is through an SDK, where the libraries of MAS360 are used as a part of your app development. This definitely involves a little more effort on the enterprises, where a developer will need to be involved to code this SDK into your app. But at the same time, in this case, you have a lot of control on the code itself, so you can tweak around with features a lot more to figure out exactly what you need and then have those enabled on your application. So two different ways and a ton of different features. Again, the way you approach this is very dependent on the situation you're in and the use cases that you're trying to solve. Of course, we can help you through this process as well as you start applying the product. And that brings us to the importance of secure messaging. So as I said, use case 0 is essentially securing the mobile device. The next stage is to deliver productivity features such as email or calendar or contacts to these mobile devices, or even a secure browser. And once that is done, a lot of our regulated customers especially want to make sure that they have controls over the other work applications which are delivered to users. Some verticals such as healthcare, finance, banking, insurance, for example, or even government have certain restrictions or regulations such as HIPAA or FINRA or SOX, for example. So to adhere with these regulations, a lot of times, you need to have some of these controls in place to make sure that your employees are productive, but at the same time, the data is secure. So secure messaging, again, is extremely important, again, in this situation. And some of the most sought-after features for secure messaging are things such as auditing, tracking and tracing, also encryption of the application and the data that resides within the application. So we'll walk through some of these later on with Galina on how you can achieve this with VaporStream, and also talk about the integration that we have here today. But if you look at the entire life cycle of the app itself, Match 360, now Mobile First Protect, can help you through this entire life cycle of the application. You can now build an app if you want to, or if you want to deploy an app directly, you can still use our app wrapping features to add these additional security controls, deploy through an enterprise app store, but of course, at the end of life, delete that the application through our platform. So with the Enterprise App Store, it's a consolidated management interface across all operating systems. Very easy to deploy and update applications without delay. Can be integrated with existing infrastructure such as AD, for example. So if you have separate groups within the organization where you might want to have a specific high security policy for someone in the field, that is possible. And maybe for someone else, maybe in your R&D team, you want to be a little more relaxed in how you approach security for them because they're probably always on inside the office when they're trying to access sensitive data. So with this AD integration, for example, or any other directory integration with your backend resources, you can now have these groups directly imported into Match 360 so that the portal or the platform can now take these groups and then distribute policies or distribute applications to users accordingly. Of course, you can also control app security through these policies. So you might want to have a restrictive policy for one user on the same app, and maybe a slightly less restrictive security policy for another user on the same app. Again, that's possible with an enterprise app store, such as Match 360. And lastly, version control. So if you have multiple versions of the same app when you're building and rapidly iterating through versions of apps, you could probably have a beta set of users to try out your app before it goes out to the general public, so to say. So version control allows you to do that with an enterprise app store. And once you have these apps out there in the field, definitely it's important to get feedback from users to make sure that you are doing a good job of producing these apps for users. But also end users would love to have discovery and a rating and review system for these apps. So the app catalog allows you to do that as well, where users have this social aspect to their app catalog when discovering or working using work apps on mobile devices. So that is an overview of the app lifecycle and how application and data security can be incorporated into your application before deploying to users. And again, as I said, secure messaging is a critical component of this, which is why we have partnered with VaporStream here, which is one of the best secure messaging apps out there today in the market. So it provides you a secure, compliant mobile messaging system for your users. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Galina to walk us through VaporStream and the integration here. Galina?
Kaushik, thank you so much for the great introduction and for the great first half of the webinar. And I thought particularly, I love your polling question and the response, because whilst many of you don't allow texting or maybe have texting going on while it's not officially functioned, you have quite a bit of texting going on worldwide. And really texting has become the de facto communication, if you will. If in the 90s people were excited about email and that being new and coming on the horizon, today really texting and mobile chatting are the new ways that people find themselves communicating. And certainly as the millennials are coming into the workforce, that's becoming much more important and much more prevalent as well. Or I should say the millennials are coming into their own in the workforce. So just for some statistics, worldwide, there are over 350 billion with a B text messages sent each month, which is really quite tremendous. And that number is dwarfed by the 50 billion per day instant messages that actually go on. So it's quite an impressive number. And if your organizations don't currently allow it, probably you would benefit from the productivity that these tools bring, of course with security, as Kaushik already mentioned, and probably people are used to that kind of communication from their own devices, from their home devices, and so forth. So, and we already touched on some of this. So what is the concern? Why is it that mobile communication is sometimes not quite as readily adopted in organizations? And we saw that again from your poll that really over 50% of you are either not sanctioning it or have unofficial uses of it. And part of it is that conundrum of, well, where do we stand on privacy and security versus mobile communication? So, for instance, if we do have those communications, some of the things that we are concerned about is making sure that corporate data and private data, which do tend to commingle on devices particularly, stay separate. And I think Kaushik, again, touched on that in his portion. So that's just important to reiterate that. Obviously, the more mobile data is sitting out on devices, the more important it is to think about how it would be handled in case of a breach. What if the phone is lost or stolen, just simply left on the airplane? What happens to that data? Not only that, but once the data leaves the device and gets texted or communicated to somebody else, what happens with the control of that information? So generally when you do that, as a sender, you lose all control. So if I send something to John, John could then forward it, copy, paste, or what have you, and I really have no control. And in fact, potentially introduce somebody else into the conversation. And those are some of the things that have been items that prevented people from widely adopting this kind of communication. So let's take a look at how we can solve this with a combination of our two technologies. So what is VaporStream? VaporStream is an ephemeral messaging platform. What does that mean? It provides a simple text and chat application that is highly secure. What it absolutely prevents is any unintended proliferation of content. So if I intend to converse with John or with a particular group of people, that's the only group of people that I will be conversing to. And that communication cannot go anywhere else. The sender is able to retain full control. So the sender can decide who's in the conversation. The other participants cannot introduce others. They cannot copy, paste, etc. And the sender controls how long that information can remain on outside devices. More on that in a bit. But before we do that, let me play a very quick introductory video before we dive deeper into the technology.
You wake up every day ready to change the world. But what it takes to create the ideas that change the world usually requires more than just a few conversations. See, common ways of collaborating make it all too easy for conversations to be overheard by people who don't need to hear them. So how do you get business done when you need to keep your business just your business? That's where VaporStream comes in. VaporStream is the ideal secure messaging app for any business or person that demands both privacy and security. VaporStream makes sure that the conversations that power everything you create and each decision you make stay private until you're ready to share them with the world, because the last thing you want your company to be is the wrong kind of headline. Doing business in a regulated industry? VaporStream lets you have conversations that are private, secure, and compliant. Just ask us how. From medical professionals collaborating as part of a patient care team, to financial professionals making market-sensitive decisions, to images from your photojournalist in an overseas war zone. VaporStream lets all of your critical conversations, whether in business or in the business of living, happen on demand and in private. Keep your company and its staff on the right side of the headlines, making them when they're ready to be made, and keep your business with VaporStream.
So that gives you a quick overview of how the solution operates and some of the business and use cases, but now let's dive a little bit deeper into how we actually accomplish this. So as I already mentioned, VaporStream is a patented secure messaging platform which is truly ephemeral. What does that mean again? A little bit deeper. It means that we have encrypted communication both in transit and on the devices. So that does provide that extra layer of security. There is no residual information stored anywhere. Data is cleared from all devices, whether they are internal or external to the organization, on a scheduled basis or at the sender's control. So the sender could decide to shred a particular conversation at any time or on a time basis, whether that time could be 1 hour, 24 hours, or a week. We separate the message and the body, the header of the message and the body, quite intentionally. So if somebody does attempt to take a screenshot, which is a way, of course, of recording that conversation, number one, they would be removed from the conversation. Number two, they won't have the information about the header or who sent the information or the provenance of that information together with the content. And those are very important things. That's in the sender's control, yet again. Image obfuscation is another feature we offer, and that prevents images from being screenshotted as well. If I do take a picture of an obfuscated image and I try to take a screenshot, what I will get is a blurred image. And we'll show you that a little bit in the later demo. So the application on the device prevents any copying, forwarding, printing, saving, or otherwise compromising the information. Now, one of the things that you heard in the video is compliance. And typically, when you think of this kind of secure, ephemeral communication, you think, well, what about compliance? What if I must have a record of that information? And in fact, most regulated industries must have a record of the information. And that is another reason why texting has not been popular in the corporate environment, because it's just such an ephemeral thing in nature, and there's no way to prove what took place. So we offer a governance and compliance module. In the governance and compliance module, we allow for a secure copy to be stored in the organization's system of record. That system of record could be an email archive. It could be a records management application. It could be the patient care system of record. So there are various systems in various industries. But that record must be complete, and then that record, which is the one single source of truth, can be retained for the appropriate duration based on organizational retention policies. Everything else on devices can, in fact, disappear. So there's no propagation, no risk. And by the way, that makes your e-discovery a whole lot easier because there's one source to go to for all your discovery requirements. So those are very important points. The other important point, of course, besides the integration with Mass 360, which Kaushik described so well, where the policies and the single sign-on and other aspects are fully integrated, we do offer a corporate security module so that you could integrate us into your various corporate structures like LDAP, Active Directory, and so forth. So again, those are important ease of use features so that the rollout and the control and the coordination of policy become a single step for the IT department. And with that, let's see it in action, and let me turn the microphone over to Avi Elkoni.
All right. Thank you, Galina. So now that we've spoken so much about what we need and what the overall strategy is, I want to take just a few minutes to show you how we bring all of this literally down to the field, to those many mobile screens that are running around and helping people stay productive, and hopefully helping them stay productive while staying within security and compliance policies. And if we are going to help people stay within security and compliance policies, one thing that is clear is that we have to make it easy for them. We had a significant percentage of honest participants at the beginning of our webinar who said, we do not allow texting, but we know people do it. And the reason why people do it is because they're used to it. It is very easy. It is already there on their device. If we're going to tell them, stop doing that, do something else instead, use a secure solution instead, obviously the secure solution has to be easy for them to use. If it's not easy to use, the same people who are non-compliant today are at risk of staying non-compliant tomorrow. So the first thing that we did is we took the VaporStream app, which is secure and encrypted through and provides sender controls, as we just said. And we integrated with the MAS 360 API. So now it is offering things like single sign-on that we will show in a minute. And of course, it is available to you and to your users within the MAS 360 catalog. So there's no need to go and look for it. Of course, we're not going to encourage anyone on their business persona to go and wildly download apps from the App Store. It is right there in front of you in the MAS 360 catalog, either for the user to download or for the admin to push to the user. So that experience becomes very easy. There's no looking for it. There's no calling help desk to find out where it is. Once it has been delivered to the mobile device through the MAS 360 catalog, it becomes, as you can see there on the bottom right corner of that iPhone screen that we put up there, it becomes just another app on the device, another app in this case on the iPhone, although we also offer it on other platforms such as Android, of course, very popular, and in a desktop version. And now all a user needs to do is, when they're ready to have their secure conversation, click on that icon and start the mobile app to start their conversation. Obviously, we want that to be secure, and in many cases, you will want that app to be protected with a password. It's easy for us to say, it's easy for me to say as a technologist and as a security professional, yes, let's put a password on there, but you know, their texting is not protected by a password, so that makes it easier to use. Definitely, if we throw another password at them that they need to remember, we're going to get into all kinds of trouble. People will start forgetting their password and calling help desk. That's going to cost us. Or they'll start writing their password on a sticky note on the back of the phone or on the top drawer and defeating security. So what we did is we integrated with the MAS 360 API in order to offer single sign-on. It is password protected. They do not need to remember another password, because when they open the VaporStream app, the first thing that we do is we take them back to the very familiar to this user MAS 360 login page, where they put in the MAS 360 PIN, the one PIN that they already know that they need in order to interact with the catalog and with many other features on their device. So yes, it is secure. No, we're not asking them to remember another password. We're not adding any more obstacle to their day-to-day lives. We're making this the path of least resistance, so hopefully more of them will follow it. In the PIN screen, they put in the PIN as they normally do for many, many operations within MAS 360, and as soon as that is authenticated, they are in their chat screen. In the chat screen, we make it as easy as possible for people to find the parties that they want to communicate with. The administrator can push a relevant list of corporate contacts into this screen. So if I'm a new employee and this is my first day using the app, I will open the app to find there all of the people that were configured for me as people that will be useful for me to communicate with. Probably my department, my team, other teams that I was added to, so I didn't need to go and start looking for people. In addition to that, we will find any registered users that are on the phone's contact list. These are people that not the administrator is telling me that I need to communicate with. These are the people that I already communicate with, and they are in my phone book. We will find those people, and we will present them here as well. And the result is, when it's time for me to start a secure chat, I have a combined list that contains the people that I want to talk with and the people that my organization is telling me that I should be communicating with, all there in the list ready for me to pick from. And when our chat starts, we already told you everything that's happening behind the scenes. The messages that I'm sending here are encrypted. They're encrypted on device, they're encrypted in transit, they're encrypted at rest on the server. There is the password protection that you saw. We will get in a minute into image obfuscation and screenshot prevention. However, from the user's point of view, as you can see in front of you, it is a very simple back and forth online chat. They don't need to learn a new skill. This will look very usable and very easy and very self-explanatory to anyone who's ever texted, or used any kind of instant messaging software before, and this is what we're aiming for. The security is in the background. Some of the security features we'll touch on in a second show themselves on the screen, but overall the experience is one that should make it very, very easy for users to jump right into. Now, we spoke about image obfuscation, and we said that we allow users to share an image, and in a business setting that would often be an image of a card or a document, not necessarily an image of a beautiful scene. Still, images that we use day to day in our business lives. We do a lot on the mobile screen to protect that image. Unfortunately, right now in this webinar, there is another computer screen between me and you, so I cannot show you the full capabilities of the mobile screen. But I will tell you that we take advantage of the refresh rate of the screen to show alternating parts of an image so that to a human looking at the screen, the image looks intact and is completely usable. But to someone taking a picture of it or to someone trying to grab an unauthorized screenshot of it, the image is not entirely there. So the person who's trying to capture an unauthorized copy of that image will end up with just a fragment of the image or just a blurred copy of the image. In the case of a screenshot, we will also detect that the screenshot was attempted and inform the sender, inform the person who sent it. So you know that this person tried to take a screenshot of the confidential image that you sent them. Now, it could have been a mistake and they'll apologize and you'll move on, or this could be your cue that maybe you should not be trusting this person with this image. Sender controls are something that's very, very important to us. And that's something that we so got used to not having that it's important to spend another minute talking about it. When we send a traditional electronic message, an email or a text, we expect that message to go to the other person, to go to the other device. And what happens with it afterwards is up to the person that receives it. They can keep it, they can delete it, they can keep it for a year, they can keep it for 10 years, they can copy it, they can quote it, they can forward it to other people. More important, I think, in a business setting is what they might inadvertently do with it. Because while, espionage and security breaches are always a concern, what comes through again and again and again in security surveys is that your biggest risk is your authorized users, people who should have access to the information and out of carelessness or purely by accident do something with it that they shouldn't. In the VaporStream app, all of these options that I mentioned, forward the message, copy the message, save a message for next year, all of these options simply do not exist in the app. So someone who wants to do it will be significantly mitigated in their effort to do it. And perhaps more important than that, your normal, compliant, authorized users cannot forward the confidential message to the client by accident. They cannot share it onto Facebook by accident because Facebook is configured on their phone, simply because there is no forward button, there is no share button on a VaporStream message. We said at the beginning that these are ephemeral messages. Messages live a short, pre-configured period of time. By default, the system will say any thread that does not see activity over a 24 hours period will be removed, and that is configurable based on your needs and your industry. And more importantly, as you can see on the screen in front of you, the sender has the option to shred a message at any point in time, including after it was delivered. So if information should be out there for a period of time, I give someone a password in a message, and then they tell me, okay, I got it, I used it, I logged in, I can then reach out and delete that password, delete that message from my device, from their device, from everywhere. I sent it, I control it, and it doesn't matter that my recipient has already received it. I, as the sender, retain control of that message, that password, that confidential information, or that image throughout the life of the message. So there is no more, oh, I sent it, now it's out there. If I made a mistake, I can reach out there and correct it. And if the information simply should not be out there anymore because it served its purpose, either the system will sweep it out of the way after a pre-configured period of time, or I can, as the sender, reach out and grab it and remove it from the devices. Other instances where this is useful is, of course, lost or stolen devices. The information on them is encrypted and is useless and can be remotely wiped very, very easily, and will be, even if you don't take any action within the pre-configured period of time. There's a lot more to this application, of course, than we can show in a 5-minute webinar, but this should give you an idea of what the mobile app can do for your users. Again, give them an experience that is very easy, very similar to what they're used to what they have right now and what they're expecting, and at the same time is 100% secure. Elena, back to you.
Thank you, Avi. That was great. So, I'm not refreshing. There we go. So some of the key points that I just want to re-emphasize again. So one of the things that we as an organization uniquely bring to the table is a group of dedicated experts in security, compliance, and information governance. And this unique combination allows us to offer an application like this, which combines the ease of user experience with all the necessary compliance features that you would expect of a corporate-grade application. We provide a truly ephemeral messaging platform, but even more importantly, while it's ephemeral, it is completely compliant with whatever regulates your industry, whether it's HIPAA or FINRA or SEC, or perhaps just your internal policies that your general counsel chooses to put in via the information governance module. Sender controls everything, whether it's messages or attachments and images, and the security, as you saw, is quiet, hardened, and therefore you could rest assured that your data is secure while the users are having a normal, easy experience. It is scalable, and it's a SaaS-based solution. So these are some of the takeaways. And just to tell you, well, some of the ways you get started, mobile force enablement is extremely important. And I think one of the takeaways from this seminar is that, in fact, it is possible without sacrificing security, privacy, confidentiality, and compliance. So in order to do that, of course, you want to check your organizational policies, your industry regulations, and make sure that the content is classified accordingly. Of course, the IGM will push the messages, but make sure it gets pushed appropriately to the right repository so it could be controlled under the right policies. Of course, we want to ensure that the confidential private information is appropriately protected and accessible only by those who require access at the time that they require that access. So, and that works both ways. The speed of delivery, because just the fact that messaging is instantaneous, it gets people's attention, versus email that might sit for a while. So just-in-time delivery and only in-time delivery, so it doesn't sit around, right? So we absolutely ensure, and you, as you roll this out, should ensure that technologies like encryption and so forth are available. And of course, the unique combination of Mass 360 with VaporStream is able to provide you these tools for improved productivity with security and compliance. And with that, let me give this back to Kayla.
All right, thanks,
Elena. I think we have one more poll question here, and then I can hand it back to Kayla. So if you'd like us to reach out to you after this webinar, please select one of these options here. A, would you like to have VaporStream reach out? Would you like to have Mobile First Protect or Mass 360 reach out to you? Or the third option is no, not at this time, and we can revisit you and come back to you later on. So we'll leave this open here for a few minutes, and in the meanwhile, we'll open it up for Q&A. So if you have any questions, please type them through chat, and we'll get them answered here when all of us here are on the panel. So there are a couple of questions which have come in. I think, Galina, this one might be for you. It says, in a mostly BYOD environment, can VaporStream really ensure that our confidential information does not remain on internal or external mobile devices and message servers while remaining compliant with industry regulations?
Yeah, so thank you, Rashid. That's an excellent question, and the answer is absolutely. So, in fact, VaporStream is designed to do exactly that. It's designed so that the information remains confidential. As we mentioned, that it's actually encrypted, and the fact that it remains there only for the preset period of time, or until such time as the sender, who is the controller, his shred, ensures that it does not linger on any device, whether the device is internal to the organization or external. And that's really one of the most powerful features, that you're really not limited to just your organization. That the fact that you could reach out and control external devices the very same way you could control internal devices is a very key point here.
Great. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Yep. There is another question about Match 360, which says, can Match 360 delete the VaporStream app remotely if required? So yes, the VaporStream app would be treated as a managed app in this case. So as with any other managed app, we can distribute this app over the air, but also delete the app if a device is lost or if a user's device needs to be wiped, or selectively wiped. That can certainly be done. There's another question here on encryption keys. I'm not sure if that's something which Avi or Galina, one of you, want to take that?
Yes, thank you, Rashid. I was actually
Yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, we need to repeat the question, I'm sure.
Yes, this is Avi. I'll take this question. And the question is about the management of encryption keys. The person asking the question is assuming correctly that in order to log messages for compliance purposes, we need to have a key store in the cloud, and the question is how we ensure that this key store is not hacked. And the answer to that is twofold. So first of all, disclaimer, anything can be hacked. We can take extreme measures to protect it. And the unique thing about our key store and about our keying strategy, which actually goes right back to the previous question, is that we produce a new key for every thread. So beyond all of the industry standard procedures that we take in order to protect that key store is in a secure database that's protected by multiple layers of security that is externally audited to make sure that it is secure. But beyond all of that, should the key store be compromised, the only, which is quite unthinkable, but we are security people, so we have to imagine that it happens. The only thing that will be compromised is messages that are alive at that moment that the key store is compromised. Any conversation that took place previously and being shredded, as Galina pointed out, is not there anymore, so it cannot be hacked from there. And any future conversation is going to get a fresh key that is not there yet at the time that the database is compromised. So the answer to that is twofold again. One, we take every possible measure, and we have this audited to make sure that the key store is protected. Two, in the unlikely event that the key store is compromised, the impact is very, very limited, because the only thing you'll find there is keys of live conversation. It's not 10 years of history of conversation that is there, and it will not even give you access to future conversations, because those will get fresh keys as they're being generated.
There's another question here, Avi, on offline or airplane mode and how VaporStream can ensure a deletion of messages when the user, say, for example, goes into airplane mode.
Right. And I'm really glad we got this message because it shows that people are listening, right? We just made this outrageous claim that we can reach out there and remove messages from devices that are not even under our control. But what if that device is offline at the time? And the answer to that is it's all about those encryption keys. As I mentioned a minute ago, every conversation gets its own key. That key is never stored long-term on any device. So while you're viewing the conversation thread, your device has the key in memory that it receives from the server. But as soon as you close the app, that key is gone. The next time you want to look at that thread, the next time you want to view that thread, that device will have to go back to the server to get the key, or all it'll have is a useless encrypted conversation. And this is how we do it. When we say we shred a conversation, no, we cannot reach out to devices that are offline and remove the conversation from them. But we can go to the one place in the universe where the key to decrypt that conversation exists and zap that key. Once that happens, if there are devices offline that have old remnants of this conversation, it's encrypted, the key is gone, so it is, while it's technically there, it is practically useless.
Thanks, Avi. One last question that we have here is, for corporate devices, can you disable the native text messaging app? I can answer that question. So with mobile device management controls that we have in place provided by the APIs of Apple or Google, for example, across iOS and Android, there are a lot of restrictions which can definitely be applied to mobile devices. For example, iMessage can be turned off on iOS devices, or similarly, there are other features on Android. So we can provide as much control as the operating systems allow us to do today. And once that's in place, of course, on the other side, you also have VaporStream, where users can now exchange messages using the VaporStream app. Avi, not sure if you had anything to add there. Please feel free to do so.
No, I think you answered it exactly perfectly, so thank you.
Maybe I would add a social engineering aspect to it. I think there are three levels here. Level one, you tell people not to text, but you don't give them a good alternative, and then the very disciplined ones will not text, and the others will ignore the directive because they need it, they use it, it's how they live. Level two, you provide VaporStream as a secure alternative to texting, and this is where the big change happens. This is where most of your employees who are not undisciplined, who are not rebels, just give them the alternative, tell them that this is the right way to do it, and tell them not to text, and they will do it. Most people want to do right. And then the question brings out a very, very valid point. Yes, there are residues to take care of. There are some people, a minority, that will continue to text, even if you tell them not to, even if you provide them with an alternative. That's the case where you want to use Mass360 to start blocking those avenues that they use.
Yep. Thank you very much for that answer. And Galina, as well as Avi, thanks for taking your time for today's call, and of course for our audience too. Thank you again. With that being said, I'd like to hand it back to Kayla for closing remarks. Kayla, over to you.
Thanks, Kaushik. And I'd like to just jump on that and say, a special thank you to VaporStream for joining us today. This has been a unique topic for us, and our audience has shown a lot of interest in it. So I do want to say thank you for joining us today. And thank you to the rest of you for joining. I do want to remind you that you will be receiving an email that will provide you access to the recording and slides for today's event. That way you can review anything you missed or share it with others. So on behalf of our presenters and the rest of us here at IBM, we hope you enjoyed today's presentation and have a productive and secure rest of your day. Thanks again.
Thank you.